I never imagined myself telling a story like this. In my own mind, I was always the careful one, the calm center when life grew turbulent, steady, reliable, the voice that kept things grounded. I didn't run after excitement or welcome chaos into my life. I never wanted to be the person who stood out in a crowd or who lived loudly just to feel alive. All I ever wanted was simple trust, loyalty, and a quiet, enduring love. Her name was Landra, and she was the kind of woman who could silence a room just by walking in. There was an ease about her, a natural elegance that drew eyes to her, especially the eyes of men. We met at a friend's engagement party. She was standing barefoot on the lawn, a glass of red wine in her hand, somehow commanding the entire scene without saying a word. That night, we ended up talking under the stars until it was almost dawn, and I was completely taken with her. Within 6 months, we were living together. A year later, we stood before family and friends, vowing to spend our lives side by side. In those early days, Landra made me feel as if I was her entire world. At parties, she'd pull me close, her eyes sparkling as she whispered things that made my heart beat faster. I thought her wild, unpredictable nature was a gift, a promise that life with her would never grow dull. And life with her was full of color, just not the kind I had expected. Looking back, the clues were there from the start, subtle but undeniable. Her phone was always face down. She'd vanish for hours without warning, only to return as if nothing had happened. Her moods could shift with no warning, and whenever I asked the questions any partner might ask, she would meet me with sharp words that turned the blame back on me, as if I was the one trying to cage her free spirit. I gave her too much trust, I think. Too much room to drift. And then came the night everything fell apart. A Tuesday like any other, until it wasn't. She came home well past midnight. Her hair was too perfectly in place, her perfume still fresh, and there was a glaze in her eyes that spoke of too many drinks. I sat waiting at the dining table. I didn't yell, didn't throw accusations, just asked, my voice steady. Where were you tonight, Landra? She let out a sharp, almost bitter laugh. Why do you always have to interrogate me? She shot back. I'm not a child you get to keep tabs on. You don't control me. I'm not trying to control you, I said quietly, my tone calm. But we're married. I think it's fair to ask where you've been when you're gone for hours without a word. She rolled her eyes, her voice dripping with contempt. You're so obsessive. I was out with friends. What, do I need your permission now? No, I told her, standing my ground but keeping my voice even. You don't need my permission, but you owe me honesty, I said. She laughed. It wasn't a warm laugh, it was sharp, cold, and it seemed to rattle against the walls. Then came her words, laced with venom and dulled only by the haze of alcohol. I can be with whoever I want, she said, staring directly at me. What are you going to do about it? Leave. She stood there, almost like she was waiting for me to explode, to yell, to throw something, to break down. But I didn't. I just looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as my wife. Not as the person I had once loved so fiercely. She was someone else entirely, a stranger wearing the face of the woman I had married. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I simply got up from the table, walked past her, and shut myself in the guest room. I turned the lock and sat in silence. She knocked once, her voice coated in mockery. Go ahead. Play the victim, she said. And then she laughed again. I didn't reply. At dawn, I got up quietly, packed a small bag, and drove away to my sister's place. No note, no text, no dramatic farewell. I disappeared from that house as silently as I could. 2 weeks later, the divorce papers were ready. I had already met with a lawyer, arranged every detail. The papers were delivered to her office. Quick, clean, final. She called me once. I let it ring. Then came the flood of messages. First, she was furious. Then confused. Then came the apologies, desperate, panicked. I didn't mean any of it, she wrote. You took it the wrong way. Please, let's talk. Don't throw away what we had. But by then, there was nothing left in me for her to reach. I was gone, not just physically, but in spirit. Words like hers, so careless, so cruel, don't just vanish. They stay, staring you in the face, demanding a choice. And I made mine. I chose silence. Not out of weakness, but as the loudest statement I could make. I rebuilt my life deliberately, finding a small cabin in the hills and turning my focus inward. I worked remotely, poured my energy into my own growth, and let time do its quiet work. The nights were lonely at first, heavy and still. But slowly, a lightness began to return. I found a freedom I hadn't felt in years. People sometimes ask me if I regret not fighting harder to save my marriage. I don't. Love isn't supposed to be a test of endurance, a war to see how much pain you can take before you break. Love should be a refuge, a safe place. That night, when Landra mocked me, flaunted her betrayals, and dared me to leave, I finally understood something. She thought my silence was weakness. But it wasn't. It was the sound of me walking away with my dignity intact, my heart no longer hers to damage. And that silence, it spoke louder than anything I could have ever said.